In the year 2247, humanity had finally crawled out of its cradle. 3 centuries after the first tentative steps on Mars, the human race had spread across 100 worlds, bound together by the Sol Compact, a fragile alliance of colonies, stretching from Mercury's scorched mining stations to the ice-locked moons of Neptune. War had nearly torn humanity apart twice, first in the resource wars of the 22nd century, then in the brutal colonial uprising that followed. But out of that fire, humanity had forged something new, the Titan-class warship. The Ares Requiem was the first of its kind, a vessel 11 kilometers long, bristling with railguns capable of hurling tungsten slugs at a third of light speed, plasma lances that could crack a moon's crust, and a fusion core so powerful it could power a small city for a decade. It was not built for conquest. It was built because humanity had learned, through blood and ash, that peace without strength was only a pause between wars. The Ares Requiem was humanity's answer to an uncertain universe, a warning wrapped in steel. Sitting quietly at the edge of the Kuiper Belt, watching the dark, Commander Elena Voss had captained the Ares Requiem for 6 years. She was not a woman who sought glory. She had lost her brother in the uprising, watched entire colonies burn from orbit, because someone, somewhere, decided that strength was the only language worth speaking. She had taken command of the Titan-class ship hoping she would never need to fire its weapons. She hoped the ship's very existence, a thing so vast, so terrible, would be enough to keep the peace. That hope ended on the 14th of March, when the Ares Requiem's deep space sensors detected an anomaly. "Commander, we have a contact," said Lieutenant Amara Chen, her voice tight over the bridge comms. "Not one of ours. Not anything registered in the Sol Compact database." Elena moved to the tactical display, watching the crimson dot blink into existence at the edge of their sensor range, roughly 200 million kilometers out. It was massive. Larger than the Ares Requiem itself, its shape defying every known category of vessel. It did not move like a ship built by human hands. It pulsed, almost organically, folding space around itself in ways that made the Ares Requiem's navigational computer stutter and recalculate. "First contact," Elena whispered. The words felt enormous in her mouth, heavier than any command she had ever given. After 300 years of searching the stars and hearing nothing, they're finally here. Word of the contact reached the Sol Compact Council within hours, relayed through the quantum-entangled communication network that spanned the solar system. What had once been theoretical, the question of whether humanity was alone in the universe, had become an urgent, terrifying reality. The council convened in the orbital chambers, above Earth, 9 representatives from the major colonies gathering in person for the first time in over a decade. Chancellor Idris Okonkwo, the elected leader of the Sol Compact, called the meeting to order with hands that trembled slightly, despite his attempts to project calm. "The vessel is currently 73 million kilometers from the Ares Requiem and closing," reported General Vasquez, head of Compact Defense. "At its current velocity, it will reach weapons range of our forward warship within 11 hours. We have no baseline for its capabilities, no baseline for its intent." And Ares Requiem? Asked Councillor Reyes, representing the Martian colonies. Commander Voss's assessment: "She has confirmed the ship is not responding to any of our standard first contact protocols," Vasquez said. "No response to mathematical sequences, no response to light-based signaling, no response to radio broadcasts across 200 frequencies. It simply approaches." A heavy silence fell across the chamber. For all their strength, for all the terrible power of the Titan-class warship humanity had built, no one in that room had ever truly believed this day would come. They had built the Ares Requiem as insurance against humanity's own worst instincts, a monument to the wars they had already fought. They had never seriously prepared for a war against something not human at all. "We should recall the ship," said Councillor Hale, her voice sharp with fear. "Bring it back to Earth's defensive perimeter. We cannot risk provoking a species we don't understand, and, if we retreat," Chancellor Okonkwo said quietly, "and they follow, we would have surrendered our only advantage, distance, for nothing." General Vasquez leaned forward, his weathered face grim. "Chancellor, with respect, the Ares Requiem is the single most powerful weapon our species has ever built. if this is a threat, she may be the only thing standing between that vessel and Earth itself. If we pull her back now, we may be signing our own death warrant. The council trembled, not from cowardice, but from the crushing weight of a decision no human government had ever had to make. Whatever they chose in the next few hours could determine whether humanity's first contact with another intelligent species became a story of peace, or the opening chapter of humanity's extinction. After nearly 2 hours of anguished debate, the vote came down 7-2. The Ares Requiem would hold its position. Commander Voss was to attempt contact through every means available, and if contact failed, and the alien vessel showed hostile intent, she was authorized to use whatever force was necessary to protect the Soul Compact. Aboard the Ares Requiem, Elena Voss watched the alien vessel grow on her viewscreen, no longer a distant red dot, but a colossal shape unlike anything in human engineering. It was asymmetric, its surface a shifting lattice of dark, crystalline material that seemed to absorb the starlight around it rather than reflect it. Occasionally, veins of pale blue light pulsed along its length, like a heartbeat. Range, 300,000 kilometers and closing, Lieutenant Chen reported. Still no response to our hails. Keep transmitting, Elena ordered. Every protocol we have, mathematics, prime sequences, the Voyager greetings, all of it. Someone built that thing. Something is listening. For nearly an hour, the two vessels closed the distance in silence. The Ares Requiem's crew watching a wall of readouts that told them almost nothing useful about the creature. Or machine, or hybrid of both, bearing down on them. Then, without warning, the alien vessel stopped. It simply ceased its approach at exactly 1,000 kilometers, hanging motionless against the black. It's waiting, Chen said, disbelief coloring her voice. Then the ship's systems flared with new activity. Sensors detected a beam of focused energy sweeping across the Ares Requiem's hull. Not a weapon, Elena realized as the tactical readouts stabilized, but a scan. A careful, methodical scan, studying every centimeter of the warship's construction. They're reading us, Elena murmured. The way we'd read them, then, astonishingly, human instruments picked up something new. A pattern of light pulses from the alien vessel, structured, repeating, mathematical. Lieutenant Chen's console lit up as the ship's computer began cross-referencing the pattern against known numerical constants. Commander. It's prime numbers, they're answering the Voyager sequence with primes of their own. A wave of something between terror and awe swept the bridge. After 300 years of silence, of wondering, of building weapons against a threat that had only ever existed in humanity's imagination, someone had finally answered. Elena took a slow breath. Send the peace sequence, all of it. Tell them we mean no harm, that our weapons are lowered, that we come only to speak. The Ares Requiem's weapon batteries, which had been quietly tracking the alien vessel since the moment it appeared, powered down in full view of the newcomer's sensors, a gesture of vulnerability, and of trust. For a long, breathless moment, nothing happened. Then the alien vessel's pale blue lights brightened, pulsing in a slow, deliberate rhythm that almost resembled a heartbeat slowing to rest. And in response to the mathematics being fed back, an image began to resolve on Elena's screen. Not words, not sound, but a shape. A star system unfamiliar to Soul Compact records, a small water-covered world orbiting a dim red star, and beside it, faint and simple, the same prime sequence Humanity had sent. They're telling us where they're from, Chen whispered. Part 4. The Council's relief, and a new beginning back on Earth. The Council watched the transmitted data arrive in real time, delayed only by the crawl of light-speed communication across the solar system. When the peace sequence was confirmed, received and returned, the chamber that had trembled in fear only hours before erupted into a fragile, disbelieving relief. They didn't attack, Counselor Hale said, her voice hoarse. They could have. That ship could have annihilated the Ares Requiem the moment it arrived, and instead, they waited. Chancellor Okonkwo finished. They waited to see what kind of people we were. And Commander Voss showed them peace. Over the following weeks, contact deepened. The alien species, who would come to be known to humanity as the Kathir, after the harmonic frequency of their first transmitted greeting, revealed themselves not as conquerors, but as wanderers, an ancient civilization that had watched countless young species rise and destroy themselves before ever reaching the stars. They had approached the Ares Requiem not to test humanity's weapons, but to test humanity's restraint, to see whether a species capable of building something so devastatingly powerful could also choose, in a moment of fear, not to use it. Commander Elena Voss became, without ever seeking the role, the first human ambassador to another species. She often reflected, in the quiet hours aboard the Ares Requiem, on how close humanity had come to a different outcome. If the Council had ordered her to fire first, if fear, rather than restraint, had shaped that first fragile handshake between two civilizations. The Ares Requiem, humanity's dangerous Titan-class warship, built in the memory of humanity's worst wars, had become instead the vessel that proved humanity's capacity for peace. It remained stationed at the edge of the solar system, no longer merely a weapon of last resort, but a monument to a new understanding. That strength, wielded with wisdom, need not lead to destruction. The Council, which had trembled in fear on that first night, would go on to establish humanity's first interstellar embassy, the beginning of a partnership between two species that would reshape the future of the galaxy. And it all began not with the firing of a single railgun, but with the courage to power one down. As Elena Voss stood on the observation deck of the Ares Requiem, watching the strange, beautiful lights of the Cather vessel drift alongside her own ship in silent companionship, she allowed herself, for the first time in 6 years of command, to feel something like hope. Humanity had built its dangerous Titan-class warship to survive a universe it feared. In the end, that same warship had become the bridge to a universe, far larger, and far stranger, than anyone had dared to imagine. And,